Hey guys, I'm Sam, or InanimateMashups. I make mashups on YouTube, and today I'm going to show you how to make one on Ableton Live 9. This should also work for Ableton Live 10. So, no matter what version you're using, provided it's not too old, it should also apply. But let's get into it. Here's how to make a mashup. So, before we get into the main part of the video, I'm going to need to go over some stuff real quick. When you're making a mashup, there are two parts to each song. There's the acapella and the instrumental. The acapella is the part of the song that is just the vocals or the vocal effects of the song. So here's an example.
Legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold, but you will remember me.
And the instrumental is everything except for the vocals in the song. So we're going to need to find an acapella for a song and an instrumental for another song in order to make our mashup. So in order to get your acapella and instrumental for your mix, really you can just do a quick Google search and generally you'll be able to find something. A lot of the time you won't. If the song isn't as well known, it might be harder to find. But just for some examples, the two songs that I'm using, Galway Girl by Ed Sheeran and Stay by Alessia Cara and Zed, I could find stems for both of these, well, instrumentals and acapellas for both of these, just by doing searches. So for Galway Girl, if you're searching for the instrumental of a song, just Google is often fine. You should probably be able to find the result there, but remember to use official. If you don't use official, you might get a remake and it won't sound as good. So yeah, and this video here, if I go down the tab, it's not here, but yeah, this one was just from a YouTube search. So either Google or YouTube or really any big video site will have something, and then you can just use a YouTube to MP3 converter. I'm going to recommend, if you're going to convert YouTube videos to MP3, to use MP3 fiber. I find that it's just better than the rest. So, I mean, really it's your preference. And then you can also use other sites like Reddit to find stuff. There's this subreddit called Isolated Vocals. If you just search up Isolated Vocals into Google, you'll be able to get to the subreddit. And this has all sorts of stuff that you could mix. It's basically just a hub for vocals only versions of songs or acapellas. And if you use the search function in the top right of the screen, like I'm using right now, there's a good chance that what you're looking for might be there. So here we go. Stay acapella. This is going to link me to a website. I'm going to have to skip through a bunch of ads, but at the end, I'll have a download for the acapella that I need. So the two most important things to keep in mind when you're making a mashup are key and BPM, because if these are messed up, then your mix isn't going to sound right. So I'm just going to go over the two of them before we actually get into the mixing of the mashup. If you look at this diagram that I've opened up here, this will explain key. So key is a certain set of notes out of like all the possible notes that a song can be done in. And there are 12, well, I guess there's 24, but when you're working with mashups, you can kind of just say that there are 12 main keys. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, G, G sharp, A sharp, and B. Some of these might be flats. I don't know. This is just an easy way to refer to them. And basically, when you look up key and BPM of songs, which we're going to have to go over soon, you're going to want to make sure that both the songs you're mixing are either in the same key when you mix, or you put them in the same key. And basically, one other thing is that if you notice I have each major corresponding to a minor here, that's because these majors and minors, if I've got them corresponded, they actually use the same notes, just in a different way. Like, I guess different parts of it are accentuated. It's getting a bit music theory-ish, so I won't talk about that too much, but if you follow this, I guess, diagram write-up thing I have here, you should have all of your stuff in key. If you're stuck with keys, you're stuck with ideas, this site could fix with both. Could, I guess, help with both. It's called encore.co.uk. You just type in www.encore.co.uk/search.php, and you'll be able to access this website that basically lets you either search for a song or browse a selection of songs, and it'll have the key information and the BPM information, but we'll get to BPM later. And if you search for a certain key up here in this tab, you will get a list of every song in the database with that key. So provided that you fix the BPMs to match, every one of these songs would be compatible to mix. So this is just a good website. It's a helpful website. If you're stuck with keys or you can't think of something to mix, I recommend having a look at this. So BPM stands for beats per minute, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It just kind of relates to how many beats are in a song per minute. And basically, the faster a song's BPM is, the faster the actual song is. Now, with mixing and making mashups, it's generally better to work with songs that are kind of in the same BPM range. Otherwise, when you have to stretch them out to match each other, the songs can get a bit distorted and the mix would just sound weird. So generally, it's good to just go with songs that have the same speed. You're going to need the BPM of a song so that you can sync it up with whatever you're mixing it with. And to do that, there's this trusty website called songbpm.com. Basically, if you put in the name of a song, or the name of an artist, and then the name of their song. So for example, I'm using Galway Girl by Ed Sheeran. You just have a comma after the artist. You have a comma after the artist, and then the song. And here we go, Galway Girl is 100 BPM. So when we put it into Ableton, we want to set that to 100 BPM, which we'll do later. And yeah, this is just a good website to work out BPM. It's not always exact. A lot of songs have BPMs that don't fall on a whole number, and as you can see, this site kind of sticks with whole numbers. So for some songs, just be wary that it might not be exact. You can always kind of adjust that later in Ableton. But yeah, generally this should be a way to get your song's BPM. Next thing we're going to need to do is get open our songs in Ableton. This is pretty easy. All you need to do is get them open in File Explorer and just drag the files into the program like this. Now when you open your program, it might have started in session mode, like here. If your program looks like this after you've opened it, just click Tab, and that will take you to track mode, I think it's called. But basically this is the mode that we're going to be using to make the mashup, and it's the mode that is easier to mix with. So just drag your two songs in like this. And there we go. So the next thing we want to do is sync up our BPMs and our keys and just get the songs kind of going on the same beat. So to do that, what we need to do is match this instrumental of Galway Girl up with the bars on the top of the screen. So there are multiple ways to do this, but basically this means once we get this going, then that will relate to the BPM that we have up here at the entire track. Well, so it's kind of the same speed. So to do that, we zoom in on the first big drum beat of our song, because this is kind of like an indicator of where it started. And we drag that where it begins right up to the line like this. And so now when we play it, it'll hit right on that beat. Now notice how if I go to any point in the song and I play it, it'll be on the start of that beat. If that doesn't happen for you, it's probably because you don't have your BPM set. And I'm going to show you how to set your BPM. Basically, you just go into this little tab down here, and what you're going to want to do is, as long as you know the BPM of your song, you just type that value in. So Galway Girl has a BPM, or beats per minute, of 100. So I put that in, and Ableton now knows that that is the BPM of that file, and now it'll reflect across when I mix it up with the top area here. Now Stay by Zed has a BPM of 102. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to change this value to 102, hit enter so the change happens, and now it'll sync up.
Waiting for the time to pass you by. Hope the wind to change will change your mind.
If yours isn't in time with the metronome, so say if it was like here, okay.
Waiting for the time to pass you by. Hope.
If that happens, what you want to do is you want to drag the first part of that melody, or the part of that melody that begins on the beat, to like a point where one of these lines are. So for Stay, that waiting line, that waiting word, the way sound is right at the start of the song, like on the first bar, at the beginning. So we're going to drag that onto the front. And here we go.
Waiting for the time to pass you by. Hope the wind to change.
There we are. So now that our BPMs are synced up to our main BPM, now we need to sync up the keys, because otherwise the mix isn't going to sound right. Like, just have a listen to this.
Waiting for the time to pass you by.
I don't know if you can hear that, but it's kind of off. Like the actual notes in each of the songs aren't like from the same thing, so it's not going to sound good. Now, what we're going to want to do to change that is we need to fix the pitches to be the same in order to get them to be the same key. So if you look down here, there is in the bottom left of the program, when you click on one of these files, there is a transpose tab. Now, this is basically saying how many semitones or how many keys we're going up with the song. So Stay on its own sounds like this.
Waiting for the time to pass you by.
If we take it up 2 semitones,
Waiting for the time to pass you by.
6.
Waiting for the time to pass you by.
It's just changing the notes that are in that pattern, and that's how it's going to be synced up with the other song. We're going to need to change it to have the same set of notes. So if we look at the cycle of keys, we know that A flat, which is what Stay is in, is 1 below A, which is what Galway Girl is in. So all we need to do is we either pitch Galway Girl down 1, or we pitch Stay up 1.
Waiting for the time to pass you by.
And once we've done that, these will sync up. Now, there's one thing that we might want to fix here though, and that's that if we pitch Stay at the moment,
I could give 1,000 reasons why.
it sounds a little bit chipmunky. And that's because of the way that we're doing this pitch conversion. You can actually change the way that you're doing the conversion in Ableton. And it's also in the bottom left. And it's this little tab here. Now, for mashups, it's best to change this to Complex Pro when you're working with acapellas, because this means that you have this little thing here called formants. And when formants are at full, you can change the pitch of a song and the actual vocals will still sound like the original singer and not a super chipmunky or super low version of it.
I could give 1,000 reasons why.
So for comparison, if we make the chipmunk voice more obvious, without performance, it sounds like this.
I could give 1,000 reasons why.
And with it,
I could give 1,000 reasons why.
now if you're using the intro version of Ableton Live, I don't think this option is available to you, in which case you might just have to use one of the other ones. But if you do have it, then it's really good, because it just means that your vocals are actually going to sound like the singer, and that's always nice when you're listening to the actual mix. So yeah, that's pitching. We keep it. +1, I'm going to pitch stay. You could pitch either of them to match the other, it doesn't really matter, it's just how you want it to sound. I'm going to do it +1 to stay, A flat to A, Galway Girl is in A, happy days. So we only have one more issue with our mix before we can actually start making it. And well, I guess it's not an issue depending on how you see it, but the actual speed of our mix, or the BPM, is a bit lower than we'd like. So if you'd listen to Galway Girl, it's pretty standard, but it's a bit slow for my liking. So to increase the speed of our like actual mashup or our track in Ableton, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to go to the top left of the program, and this little thing here that I'm moving at the moment, that number corresponds to the BPM of our entire project. And as Galway Girl's BPM is 100, as we've said, for our project to be running at the same speed as Galway Girl, they're going to have to change that to 100. Now, I'm just doing this because I think it's going to sound best for the mix. You can set it to whatever speed you want with the mix at the moment, but I wouldn't stray too far from the original BPM, just to kind of keep the song closer to the way it is. You don't want to destroy it while making the mashup. So the lowest I'd go is about, I don't know, 85. You can also speed it up if you want. It's really your personal preference. So now we can actually start assembling the pieces of our mashup. So each song, or most songs generally have all songs have a certain structure, and most pop songs usually have a structure that involves a verse, a chorus, and a bridge. Now, because I'm working with pop songs, what I'm going to want to do is to kind of keep it all, I guess, clean and just fit together better. I'm going to want to sync the verses of the song up with the verses of the other song, and the choruses up together as well. So, Galway Girl starts with a little chorus intro thing. So Ed just kind of sings the chorus of Galway Girl here, and then the actual verse starts here. So what I'm going to do is Control X to cut stay, which is just copying it but also deleting the original. It's basically Control C, it just deletes the original file, and Control V right where the verse starts, here. Now sometimes when you paste it, it'll actually set the file off a little bit. Like, so this isn't exactly on time anymore.
Waiting for the time to pass you by.
Now to readjust that to actually fit the time of the beat, we can click on this little area here that my mouse is on above the tracks, and just hold it, left click it, and drag down to zoom in to our file, and up to zoom out of our file. If we zoom down, if we drag down and zoom in, then we can actually move our track just by dragging it across. And the further in you go, the more precise you can be with your dragging. So if I was just out here I wouldn't be able to sync it up properly because I'd only be able to move it big chunks. But if I zoom in, I can actually move it to be at the exact point on the beat.
Waiting for the time to pass you by. Hope the winds of change will change your mind.
Yeah. And so from here on, because you've set your BPMs, everything should generally stay in place, should stay the same BPM, it'll stay the same key. Some songs have key changes, you're gonna have to keep that in mind to just make sure nothing clashes. I recommend if you're starting out, just don't use songs with key changes, and just be careful of a lot of, I guess, older songs and rock songs, because a lot of those songs often have changes in BPM as well, because they're not done on computers and it's not constant. I recommend just starting with like a modern pop song or something if you're getting used to this. But generally you should be fine once you've set all this up, and it's just kind of cutting and pasting the pieces where they belong. So
Waiting for the I could give 1,000 reasons why, and I know you, and you've got to make it on your.
now here's an issue here that we might need to work on. If you notice, Stay actually has a pre-chorus before its chorus, whereas Galway Girl just goes straight into the chorus. So what we're gonna need to do here is you have two choices. You can either extend the verses of Galway Girl to meet up with Stay's pre-chorus so that the chorus can hit on Stay's chorus, like this.
And I too make it on your own, but we don't have to time. I could give without
Obviously we might need one more.
underneath the
Copy and
rising
paste.
sun. I could give, all you have to do is stay.
But what I'm gonna do, and what is the other option, is you can actually shorten the verses of Stay. So just get rid of that pre-chorus. So I would just left click that with my mouse to select, and just drag my click across while still holding it, and release it to stop selecting that selection. I can click delete to get rid of that, and then I can just drag across our acapella to where we want it to be.
Stay a minute, just stay a minute, just take it's time, the clock. Stay,
So now we need to fix this little thing here.
stay.
This is saying may instead of stay because we've cut it off. So what we need to do is get that, all you got to do is stay part to actually not be gone in the mix. So the way that we can actually restore what we've cut is if we go to the top left of our file, of our little acapella thing, we'll get this little icon here, the kind of bracket thing. And if we left click that, hold that click, and drag it right or left, we can add the parts that were next to that song as they're there. So for Stay, because we need that, all you have to do is, it's just before the bit we've cut, we drag it left until we have it.
I too, all you have to do is stay a minute.
Now one more thing we might want to fix is this little part here.
All you have
This just gets cut off and it's kind of messy. Like if you listen, that little echo on You've Got
I
To.
too, all you have
To clean things like that up, and this just helps make your mix a bit more professional. It's just a small thing to do. You can go to the audio tab for that song. Go down to the first drop down and click fades. And this now lets you crossfade any two parts in that whole track. So if we do this,
to, all you have to do is stay.
it kind of fades the reverb of You've Got To out and makes our whole mix a bit cleaner.
All you have to do is stay a minute, just take it's time, the clock is ticking, so stay. All you have to do
So now we just go through the song doing that. Just crossfading where we need to, extending when we need to, fitting the songs together where we need to. Yeah. So I've gone and done all the stuff I've just told you. I've cut and pasted pieces of the song to match where they need to be. I've even cut the instrumental at parts, just so it all transitions smoother and I can match it up with the vocals. And yeah, for the most part our mix is pretty much done. Now there's just a few adjustments that we need to make before we can actually export our mix and consider it a finished product. Now if you listen here, first of all, I think that's actually a little bit early, so we might just adjust this to hit a bit later. And there we go, it's adjusted. One more thing we might need to do is change the volume of our acapella to fit the volume of our instrumental, or change the instrumental's volume to fit the acapella's volume. So first of all, so we exported a louder track. I mean, this doesn't really matter, but it's just something that I like to do. We can go down to the bottom left again, and this little line thing with the arrow indicates the amount of decibels, or how loud we're actually making the track that we selected. So the higher up we go, the bigger the waveforms get, if you'll have a look. And the lower we go, the smaller those waveforms get. And the higher up we go, the louder the track gets. And the lower we go, the quieter the track gets. So what we're going to want to do is kind of get it loud enough so that bits of it start reaching the end of the little box that the track's in. For lack of a better word, it's not really a box. But yeah, we can put it up around there. Now stay's kind of still a little bit loud compared to Galway Girl. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to decrease this triangle at the bottom left and kind of just turn the track down a bit. So we can actually play this while we do that, because we're using Ableton, and Ableton's a program that kind of lets you adapt things while you work with it. So, well, I mean, adapt things while you're actually listening to it. There we go. That's a full sync up. Now, at this point, so at this point our mix is basically done, but what you could potentially add are just a few things to kind of spice it up, to make it a bit more interesting. So I'll show you some of that. Something that I use in almost every mix is Reverb. You can get that in Ableton by going to this audio effects tab under categories on the left side of the screen and scrolling down to Reverb. And here, if you go down and click on the drop downs, you'll have all sorts of different options. You can use any of these, just try them out, honestly. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to use the normal version of Reverb. Reverb generally isn't good on instrumentals because it kind of takes away from the drums and stuff and makes the mix a bit muddy, but on vocals they're a godsend. When you use Reverb, you'll have a bunch of stuff you can control. High cut and low cut can just affect like what the actual reverb sound is like. That kind of also goes with the size and shape, and that's kind of setting the tone of your reverb. Dry/wet is probably one of the most important parts because that affects how much of your original sound. So for example, the stay vocals here it's saying how much of that is the sound, like the original sound, and how much of that is the reverb. So if I turn this to 100, it'll just be reverb. But if I turn it to 0, there's no effect. So generally what I go with is a 14%. I find that adds just a little bit of a touch, and like it's almost enough not to notice, but it kind of adds a little professional feel to the mix. And yeah, sometimes if I'm working with a bit more ambient music, you could also change the decay time, which just kind of states how long the reverb is actually going to go for. So right now it's 1 second. If I change it to like 10 seconds, or yeah, 10 seconds. Then that little tail will last for 10 seconds. So yeah, you can try a bunch of stuff out. Just see what works for you, honestly. I haven't needed to do it for this mix, but another thing that can kind of help make your mix sound a bit better is EQ. So, say for example, I pitched Galway Girl down 4 to match a song. So instead of sounding like how it normally would, it would sound like this. All the high frequencies kind of get taken down to match the pitch, and so the sound becomes a bit muffled. So what you can do is, with an EQ, you just drag it in the same area as we've got the reverb. It's just in the options. You can move these little marker things with your mouse at the bottom left of the screen on this EQ8 tab, and that will increase the loudness of a certain frequency, which is basically like a certain pitch. I mean, it's technically not correct to say that, but yeah. And so if I'm pitching something lower, because the frequencies are getting pushed down, or to a lower frequency, I guess the sounds are, then I'll kind of have it shift upwards so we make up for those lost frequencies and get the sounds to still be whole. So without the EQ it's like this, and with the EQ it's like this. So yeah, that's a good little thing you can do to just kind of fix up any distortions that come with pitching stuff. So once you think your mix is done, once you think it's complete, we can export it into a file that we can then use to listen to it instead of just keeping it in this program. So to like an MP3 file or a WAV. So what you would want to do is, if you're using a demo version of Ableton, you won't be able to do this. You'll have to buy the program. But if you own Ableton, you go down to the top, you go up to the top left on the File tab, go down to Export Audio/Video. Make sure you're not selecting anything, because if I was selecting something, then the area that you've selected, only that fraction of the song is going to export. So you want to make sure that you're not actually selecting anything when you do this. When you click it, you can get all these settings. I generally ignore most of this. For file type, you can choose between WAV and AIFF. I generally just go with WAV, and then if I want to create an MP3 file, I'll do that in Audacity. But yeah, all these different options. Generally, you're safe with whatever you're doing. But yeah, just click export. Give it a name. I've already created this mix, so I won't do that. But say we were creating a new one. We just export, wait for it to render, do all that stuff, and after that we'll be done. And there we go. And that is how you make a mashup. I hope my video has been helpful to you. If you have any questions at all regarding your own projects of this type, your own mashups, feel free to just leave a comment. I'll try to get back to you as fast as I can. I'm not like a professional or anything, so there's definitely stuff I won't know, but if you're asking about, even if you need like certain song files and you can't find anything, you can just send me a message on, actually just don't send a message, just leave a comment, and I'll see if I have stuff. So if there's anything you need, just let me know. Thanks for watching, and bye.